Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa, and today we're welcoming back Glynn Burrows. He is a family history expert and owner and tour operator of Norfolk Tours in England. So whatever you want to experience in England, just call Glynn, 1-800-GLYNN. Go to Norfolk-Tours.co.uk, and he really puts packages together, whether people are, digging up their, I really don't want to say digging up family
digging
history.
Up, that's
because you don't want to take people to graveyards and say, dig up your family history.
I do take them to graveyards, but they don't dig up the ancestors.
No digging up of ancestors, but maybe you want to go and see special sites, go stay in bed and breakfast, have a pint in a pub. Glynn really does all of that. So again, it's Norfolk-Tours.co.uk. He's been on our show for years, and this year being our anniversary year of Big Blend Radio and Big Blend magazines, it's a big year. We're the Jubilee, but we're not as big as the Queen because she has a big anniversary. But our experts are having special show series, and Glynn is on every month. Glynn, we're excited to have you every fourth Saturday. You can hear Glynn here on Big Blend Radio. If you're in England, it'll be Sunday morning at midnight. But anyway, it'll get better. It'll get better. But welcome back, Glynn. How are you?
Well, fantastic here. Thanks. Yeah, lovely sunny day here.
It's nice. Cool.
It is nice. That's great to hear. And we're laughing about our silver jubilee of Big Blend magazines, but like I said, the Queen is 70 years. She's been the monarch of England and beyond.
Wow.
Yeah, February the 6th, 1952, she became Queen of England.
Wow.
And how old was she then? Do you know?
25, I think she was.
Wow, that's so young.
Yeah, she was a young girl.
Yeah.
You've got a great article up on blendradioandtv.com, and everyone can check it out now, where you talk about how she wasn't supposed to be. I mean, a woman running the country at that point. I mean, obviously there's been women queens in Scotland and over the years, but this was not what was supposed to happen.
Well, I mean, obviously Queen Victoria was up until the Queen was the longest reigning monarch of England. She was Queen for 64 years.
Wow.
But when Queen Elizabeth was born in 1926, she was just another member of the royal family, because her dad was not expected to be king, because Edward VIII, who was at that time the Prince of Wales, he was expected to be king, and he did actually become king. But then, as we all know, when it hit the fan, so to speak, in England in 1936, and Wallis Simpson reared her head, the government of the day, and also the governments of the rest of the world, who were still, a lot of the world was still under British rule. A lot of the governments throughout the world didn't want the King of England to be marry a divorcee, especially a twice divorcee.
Naughty.
Oh, twice.
Horror.
Woo-woo.
So he had the choice of either finding another bride or abdicating, and he abdicated.
Wow.
Him and Wallis Simpson left the country and got married in France and lived in France for most of their lives.
Because even with Prince Charles, that was a big to-do when Lady Di and Prince Charles split. That was a big deal then.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of current still.
Well, the thing is, you see, I mean, the Queen's children, apart from Edward, they've all now been divorced. I mean, Anne got divorced, Charles has been divorced, Andrew has been divorced.
That's right, Sarah Ferguson,
So they've all been divorced apart from Prince Edward, and it really wasn't the thing that you would have expected. So, like I say, when the Queen was born, she wasn't expecting, or her family were not expecting to be high royals. They were expecting to be, some of the other royals in the royal family, but not in the limelight.
So, did they get paid? I mean, is there some?
They do get an amount of money. I think it's called the Royal purse or something. So they do get paid. All
Oh.
members of the royal family who perform things to do with the royal family, like attend events and things, they get paid from
Ah.
the, I think it's called the privy purse.
Mm.
So they get an amount of money, but they also get their lives paid for anyway. You know, even if they're not working, they're living in Kensington Palace or this palace or another palace,
Yeah.
or, you know.
Hmm.
And also, I mean, you know as well as I do, and this isn't, I'm not saying this is in a political way with a small p. You know, some of the royal family are doing very nicely, thank you, because they're members of the royal family.
Mhm.
I'm
Right.
I'm the director of such a thing just because I'm a member of the royal family, or I'm on this letterhead just because I'm a member of the royal family and get paid £20,000 a week for doing it.
Wow.
There are some who do that,
Hmm.
but they do
Wow.
get, the ones who work do get paid from the privy purse.
Mm. And so what's interesting about, you know, royal families, because it kind of shifted at one point, because the royal family was the government. I mean, look at Queen Victoria. I mean, this was wars. There were women at the helm of wars, massive wars. I mean, even if you think of World War I and II, I mean, but before that, there were really big wars that were going on, and the royal families were really involved. Even if you think about Russia's history, you know, that they had the royal families, and here it comes, everything went crazy. But it wasn't, so it kind of is interesting how royal families, then you've got the church, right? And then you've got government, and how those three kind of, who's doing what. But really now we're down to government, is in the royal family is more like, I don't want to say a mascot, but a
Figurehead.
Figurehead.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Well, better put. Yeah.
A mascot.
for the country. Well, we have a mascot, and she's a pink
They're-
little sock
they're-
monkey called Priscilla. That
yeah.
is not a queen, though she thinks she is a queen. But we'll let her be a princess, you know. But
Princess Priscilla. I like that.
The things that you're talking about, where the royal family actually went into war with the rest of the population, you're talking about the Middle Ages.
yeah.
Up until Cromwell's time, the royal family had a lot more say to do with the government as such. So you do find that the monarch was actually the one who was passing the laws. But now, at the moment, yes, the Queen has to sign the laws of the land, but really and truly, she hasn't got any choice. Although she has to sign it, and I suppose if she wanted to, she could say no. I don't know how far she would get if she said no, but basically speaking, the Queen does what the government tells her to do up to a point, but she is still the monarch, so she
You had
has
to put that up to a point in there, because she's listening right now going, Glynn, I'm 70 years old in this.
But
Maybe in my
but
90s, but I'm 70 years of running this.
But it is interesting. I mean, if you look at our recent history, you know, the difference between what government says and does, and like, I mean, look at President so-called Trump person.
Oh, great,
boy.
Nancy. Now we're going to get in trouble.
Well, no, I mean, he really pushed the envelope as far as what he was allowed to do and not allowed to do. And now I think our government's looking at how do we got to put more checks and balances in the system.
Yes. I mean, and that is the whole point, because in England, I mean, this is a completely different subject, but in England, government is that we have the House of Commons, which is in theory, and I say in theory, because the House of Commons is supposed to be made up of the common people.
See, yeah.
Right. Anyway, so it's made up of the common people who are basically elected into the positions that they're in. So they're supposed to represent the people who elect them.
Right.
let's not get into that.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
they make the laws, and then that has to go through the other house, which is the House of Lords, and the Lords are not elected. They are an appointed body. And then ultimately it goes to the Queen for her Queen's assent, that's called, her permission. So in theory, there are, in our government, 3 ways of making sure that any laws that go through a process. But I will say, and this is my opinion totally, the system is broken. It's been broken for a lot of years. And at the moment, we are in a complete muddle because the House of Commons does not represent common people, and it is not made up of common people.
It's very similar to this country. I mean, when Nancy was, her comment on Trump, and he is past president, and he really did show how many loopholes are in the system, how many holes were there, and made us all aware of actually starting to learn our own political system, what's legal, what's not. And so there's always, and it's interesting what's happening in this country with it all. But, and part of why he did so well is that there really, we need people to also represent the common people, like you're saying. He went out to the common people, and it shows a very huge need. And I don't care what political party everyone's on. Nancy and I are tired. We love to party. You know that. We love our champagne Sunday. But I'll tell you this, we do not like what's going on because the both parties, because we have 2 and we should have more than one. We like a lot of parties, but it's gone to the part of no one's representing anyone. So I think it's just not just America. It's not just England. This is, I think it's a sign of the times. We're in a shift, and I think having the global age, and I want to get back to the Queen and what you were talking about, how long she's reigned. 70 years she's reigned, yet at the same time, she's in her 90s. She's been through a whole bunch, and here we are. I think the digital age, having information on a little computer, a phone, it has made it that we are, as the common people, getting a little bit more aware of things, and that riles up all kinds of stuff. And I think it's going to take a few years for us all to kind of realize. I hoped COVID would have taught us all a lesson, but it's really about, there's a bunch of greedy people at the top. And no matter what party you're part of, there's greedy people, and that this is global, but we are starting to see things. And so I think there's restlessness around the world because we're starting to learn more and see more.
Is there anybody in politics in either country that isn't rich?
Not many. The trouble is, in the English system, to stand for Parliament, you need to put up a load of money.
Exactly, and that's the same with us. I mean, and most of it's advertising costs. But
So
when we lived in Kenya, we saw they had one political party, and so there wasn't fundraisers for 2 different or 3 different parties going and raising money for a candidate. There was one political party, and they had a political television channel. So basically anybody in Kenya could run for free. They didn't have to go raise the cash to advertise because
they probably ran just to get on TV.
I know. So there was and I mean, it sounds wonderful, but at the same token, I received a voting card, and there was no way I should have got a card. And the card was fun because there was a quarter moon on it, there was a hammer, and there was a goat, and you voted for the symbol. So I'm like, I vote for the goat because I like animals better than I do tin cans, So I mean, and there was a good part to it, but then at that time, I'm talking so many years ago, I have no idea how they vote today. But I thought it was pretty funny because I was a resident, but
not legal to
not legal to vote.
I personally don't agree with party political system. I believe in local representation by independent people. And I
Yes.
think that is the way forward. The trouble is that I don't think it's going to happen because the party system has been going for too long, and it's going to need a revolution.
I think,
Yeah.
but that's why I say it's, but it is a revolution, but it's a global one because a lot of the countries, like I was saying, we're all sitting in that same spot. And locally, you can hold someone's feet to the fire, not physically, but you can, and you get to know them. They're living down your street. And I think decisions, especially when we look at climate change and all of these issues we are facing in the world, when it comes to local, you know what your town needs more than somebody who's never been there, who tells you what to do. You know, it's every town is and community is different and has different needs, has different weather patterns, though, you know, tornadoes are happening in this country in places they're not supposed to at the wrong time. It's like, excuse me, Mother Nature, can you do a detour? But it's not happening. So I think it's interesting, but the Queen has been through
a lot.
What you think about 70 years. So she's been through wars.
Yeah,
The ends of wars.
The thing that really we all have to realize is that Queen has been queen for 70 years, but she's lived nearly up to 100. You know, she's 94, 95.
Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
She is she's had an amazing life, and her life has seen so many changes. I mean, it's unbelievable what has happened in the world during her lifetime. I mean, when she was born, radio was just about coming in.
Wow.
But you know, that weren't really, I mean, aeroplanes, yes. I mean, she was born in 1926, so it was after the First World War. So yes, aeroplanes were the things that you would have seen, but not, I think 1927 was when they first flew across the Atlantic, if I remember rightly, but I wouldn't, don't quote me on that. You know, so cars were
Just coming,
cars were about, but there weren't that very good communication systems. You know, you needed a cable to use a telephone. So if you think about it, I pick up that thing and I can now call you from my living room. I mean, that has all happened since the Queen has been, well, since the Queen has been Queen, but since she's been alive, you know, everybody having such things as hot and cold running water has been in her lifetime, because even when I was little, we only had cold water in the house. We never had hot water. Inside toilets, you know, I mean, when I was little again, we still had outside toilets down the yard, which was a bucket my dad had to empty. You know, so, I mean, the world has just completely changed within her reign, within the one woman's power. I mean, she's been, we've just talked about how much power she's really got, but during her reign of being Queen of England and the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth and whatever, the world has changed beyond belief. I mean, I remember even
we have Netflix.
I mean, I've never known another monarch since I've been on. I'm 62. You know, I mean, my dad was an older teenager. I think he was 19 when she became queen. He's now 88. You know, so I mean, you've got to just take into account how much of this world the Queen has seen, and she has knowledge. I mean, the Queen is amazing. The Queen speaks fluent French. She speaks, I don't think she speaks other languages. I mean, they do say that the Queen does a fantastic Norfolk accent, which I'd love to hear, but they do reckon that she does.
That's funny.
She knows Norfolk because, I mean, she spent a lot of her life in Norfolk because of Sandringham, which is behind your head at the minute. You know, so I mean, the Queen knows her country, which is something that, getting back to politics, a lot of politicians don't know their country because they don't know as much as the Queen. The Queen is an amazing woman. You know, really is.
And she's been around the world. And I wanted to say too, she's also was on the front lines in war. Didn't she serve her country in the
Yeah, I
military?
mean, although no, she wasn't on the front line, but she was in the ATS, which is the woman's sort of training service, and she used to drive army trucks around and things. So she did take part.
Wow.
Right on.
Cool. That's
She
cool.
She weren't actually on the front lines. Prince William, Prince Harry,
Yes.
and Andrew have all served on the front
Yes.
line. You know,
Yeah,
so you've got to hand it to those royals. Probably not Andrew as much as you'd like to at the moment. But you know, things he has done his bit.
Actually, I really believe that anybody who serves in our government, whether they're Democrat or Republican or progressive, should have done some kind of either military service or community service of some type.
Yeah,
in order to
it's not a lot
qualify
to
to
ask.
run.
I mean, I used to work in a factory, and one of the owner's sons actually went through the entire factory because he needed to see what his factory did.
Yeah.
And when he then talked about it, he knew what he was talking about. So he
Yeah.
worked alongside me on the production line, you know, doing manual labor. So he knew what he was talking about, and I hand it to him, you know, because that then means he can have a word with anybody and feel right-sized.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the Queen, again, is the sort of person who does that. I knew a man who used to run her pigeon lofts. Now, the Queen has racing pigeons. And I knew the man, he's sadly passed away. I knew the man who had her pigeon lofts. And the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh used to come to his house. Every time they was down in Sandringham, they used to come to the house, see the pigeons, and have a cup of tea with the people in my village. You know,
That's cool.
Now that's lovely that the Queen of England mixes with common people.
Yeah,
That's good.
exactly. Yeah.
That is good. And Sandringham, that's something I wanted to touch on, because doesn't she go there for holidays, and then, you know, and just like the royal family as such. And you said even Lady Diana has been there. That is an icon for Norfolk, and you can't go there as a guest, right? As visitors, you've taken your guests.
Sandringham House is open to the public during the sort of normally from Easter to October, and that is the royal family's private house. It doesn't belong to the state, to the country. It belongs to the Queen herself. I did do an article. It's on the website, all about Sandringham. And yes, I mean, Diana knew it well because she was born next door in a house next door to Sandringham House, because her dad used to work for the Queen. But yes, I mean, the Queen normally comes here for Christmas and New Year. She didn't this year because of all this COVID stuff going on. And she normally stays up until the 6th of February. She always stays in Sandringham until the 6th of February when her dad died, because her dad died in Sandringham on the 6th of February.
That was going to 6th of January, Epiphany. When you think about her dad now, is he the one that got euthanized? Or is that
her granddad was
King George. He was euthanized. So we got to touch on that. I'm not letting you go until we touch on this, because this is some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Being
I've
euthanized.
never heard
What
of such
year?
thing.
Yeah. What year was this? When we think back,
this was in 1936, and this was George V.
Wow.
Which was the Queen's. He was the Queen's grandfather. And what happened was that Lord Bertrand Dawson, who was the King's physician, he was looking after the King. He'd been taken unwell on I think it was the 15th of January. He sort of took to his bed, and on the 20th of January, Bertrand Dawson wrote in his diary, and I did just look this up, so I've got it. I can read it to you. So on the night of the 20th of January, he wrote in his diary, "I therefore decided to determine the end and injected morphia 3/4 gram, and shortly afterwards, cocaine, 1 gram, into the
Whoa.
king's distended jugular vein.
Wow.
The injection resulted
He
in
got high before he went.
Man.
the king's death. Actually was
Wow.
happened that night, and according to Dawson's journal, which was released to the public in 1986, so this is 50 years afterwards, he intended to grant to the king a painless death and to guarantee that his passing would be announced in the morning papers rather than the less appropriate evening journals.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, and that is
Wow.
actually in the man's diaries. And
Just
his
imagine.
archives are held in the Windsor Castle archives. So
Can you
that's-
imagine? Your doctor takes you out so that you could be in the New York Times instead of the Washington Post.
Oh,
Exactly.
God.
Yeah, why not?
No, I mean, who knows which
No
one's better?
way.
Come on. But that's interesting because you think about then, and as writers, you know that, okay, the evening journals, you're scrambling at that point to make sense of what has happened. You know, and you think back to the days where newspapers came out, you know, twice a day, and it wasn't like, and you got to think way back then, it was a different kind of production.
Yes.
But then, you know, journalists would work through the night to get what happened during the day on the newspaper for the morning. Okay, this is what happened. And things would continue on during the night. So that's really interesting. So the king must have wanted that too.
I don't think the king had the
I
choice.
don't think so.
Oh, you don't think so? He didn't have the choice?
Well,
I mean,
he's
I would
probably
say I
too
want to go
sick.
out all happy.
No,
They gave me morphine when
Well,
I
I
broke
mean-
my arm. It felt good.
you know,
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you
the-
can't
the
mix it
thought-
with
the thought
cocaine.
today, when this all came out, the thought that somebody could have actually murdered the King of England is
Mhm.
just beyond comprehension.
But it is murder.
Yeah, it is.
Really.
It's
It's
totally murder.
So did anybody
Wow.
know that back then? I mean, did he get in trouble, the doctor? Or
He's
I
dead.
don't think so.
wow.
I haven't really looked into it because I mean that was 1936.
Yeah,
It
it's
was the year before my mum was born, so I don't think I would really be that interested. But yeah, I mean it is a fascinating thing to think that his physician would kill the king just so as he
Wow.
could get in the morning papers.
What happened to the hypocritical oath?
Yeah.
well,
don't
no, but
know.
it's his diary got taken. I mean, that's amazing. And you know, the diaries,
Really
wow.
crazy.
And think about how we used to keep diaries. I mean, I know a lot of people now it's journaling, but diaries were a big deal. I mean, taking notes on things. And there's a lot of people, a lot of explorers who did really amazing things, but they were terrible at keeping their diary. Like
Yeah.
even Fremont, Fremont, I mean, he went with Kit Carson and everything, and his wife apparently wrote his journals for him.
Well,
Yeah.
not everybody went to school back
Well,
then.
no. But I mean, Queen Victoria had a fantastic diary. Her
Hmm.
diaries are totally amazing because I mean, she journaled everything. So I mean, a lot of
That's
the royal
cool.
family do. I don't know whether the Queen writes a diary. I've never really looked into that, so that could be worth
Ooh.
reading. Because I mean,
Didn't
her
they
her
had
diaries would be
scribes.
fascinating.
I thought they had scribes, like they didn't physically maybe write it themselves. They just told somebody to write it down for them.
No, I think Victoria did her own. I
Did she?
don't
Wow.
swear to that, but I
Hmm.
think so.
Huh.
Mm. So what happens when the Queen passes away? Who takes over?
Well, Charles is the next one in line.
What are you laughing at, Lisa?
I don't know. And well, you see now he brought Camilla into the fold, which was a big shakeup.
Well, there's also the big debate as to whether whether she would become Queen Camilla or not. But I don't know. Who knows? I live today,
Oh,
and
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Because it could change, just like her becoming.
I mean, you've
Queen.
also got to realize that the Queen has been Queen for over 70 years, and Prince Charles is over 70. So
maybe it goes to somebody younger.
well, who knows? I mean, the Queen has always got the opportunity to abdicate in favor of the next generation, and whether Charles would take it or not, or whether he would say, right, we'll give it straight to William. I don't know. You know, the world is a very strange place at the moment. And
Yes.
the royal family can do a lot of things that they want to do. So if they wanted to think about passing it straight down to William, I suppose they could. I don't know.
Wow.
It's going to be interesting to watch what happens, you know, because we don't have that many royal families left around the world.
No, probably not.
I mean, Hawaii had, you know, they had some really amazing and interesting rulers.
Yeah.
Women. Kamehameha.
There was a queen who
Probably
came
said
to
it wrong.
the coronation, and she was of one of the Pacific Islands, and she was the star of the show at the coronation, because she was bigger than life in all ways of thinking. I can't remember what her name was, but I think she was an island queen as well. And
Wow.
there are still a lot of royal families, but there are also a lot of royal families that aren't continuing as royal families because the countries have changed, but they're still there, if you know what I mean, in the background. So, you know, there are still some others, but you know, our royal family goes right the way back, further than a lot of them do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have you ever seen her, like, in person?
Yeah. I've seen her at Sandringham, actually. I've been to the church at the New Year, because normally the royal family goes to church while they're at Sandringham, and they walk. Well, the Queen doesn't walk now, but at that time they did. They used to walk from the house up to the church, and the members of the public can stand and watch them go to church. So I've been, I was then going to say I've been from me to you, away from the Queen, but I've been from me to the end of my dining table, away from the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh and Diana and Charles, you know, because they all walked to church and we were just standing beside them on the path. But
I wonder what it's like to be like in that kind of scrutiny.
I've never met her.
Yeah. But she seems to have a sense of humor, you know, with musicians going through. She likes music, obviously. She's very much a music, you know, lover, and that, you know, there's a certain way to curtsy, bow, and all of these different protocols. But she seems pretty, I don't know, relaxed
down to
about
earth.
it. Like down to earth.
Down to earth.
Yeah, everybody who I have heard who have met the Queen personally say that she is fantastic at putting them at their ease. She doesn't stand on she does stand on ceremony, but she doesn't. I mean, I know the lady whose husband used to be the Queen's pigeon man. You know, she said that she just used to come in and sit down and have a cup of tea, you know,
and just be normal.
Just be normal. Yeah.
That's
lovely to think that, you know, I was going to say, you know, a normal person, but you know what I mean, you know, an everyday commoner can have the Queen sitting in their living room actually being like a normal person. That must be lovely.
Yeah, I remember a story about the Queen meeting Idi Amin.
Yeah.
And that he ate with his hands and didn't use silverware. And so she decided not to use silverware either.
Yeah.
So just so that he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I doubt that he would feel uncomfortable, but I didn't think he was that sensitive type. But you know, but I remember that story. I have no idea if it's true, but I just remembered that was a story that I heard when we were living in Kenya, that when the Queen met him, she was like that with people, whatever the custom of the person that was at her table followed, that she would follow that custom as well.
Yeah, she is. She does seem to be the sort of person who would put you at ease. And I suppose that she's met so many people. I mean, I did put in my article, you know, that she's known all of the American presidents since Truman.
I know Truman was president. That's Nancy's favorite president.
Right.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, obviously I don't know whether she met all of them, but I mean, she met a lot of them. I know she met Nixon because you sent a lovely picture of her on horseback. It looks like that's probably at Sandringham, actually. I don't know.
That was that was Ronald Reagan.
Oh, right. Yeah, Reagan. Yeah, sorry, not
It's a
Nixon.
big difference.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just thinking about something else. But, you know, I mean, she has to mix with all of these different rulers and, you know,
Yeah.
all over the world. And she has to meet them because that's what she's told to do. You know,
Right.
You know how funny it is? You just said ruler. And, you know, now we're so much in this culture of there are leaders. No, they're not. They are rulers. You know, when you think about, you know, the politicians are now rulers versus,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
Well,
interesting.
I wouldn't want to have to follow some of our so-called leaders into war. No thanks. Bye-bye.
no.
No, but I think this is just fascinating, kind of looking at her life and then just the way the world has changed during her time. I mean, I wonder if, you know, being a mother too, I mean, she had given birth to her 2 children, right, before she became queen, if that helped her also have some balance of humanity, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, you've also got to remember that she was brought up in the time when children were seen and not heard.
Oh,
And you know, she was
it's a
also
good time.
yeah, she was brought up in the times when, especially for her class, the children were sort of brought down to be patted on the head and then sent to bed with the nanny.
Oh, that's so fun.
Because that was the norm in those days. I mean, her and the Duke of Edinburgh were actually in Africa when she became queen, and the children were left at home being looked after by family and nanny. You know, now that is not something that, for instance, Diana did when, you know, she didn't want to spend time away from her children.
Right.
And William and Kate, they take their children
Everywhere.
You know, all right, so they've got nannies, but William and Kate are modern, obviously, people, whereas the Queen was brought up by somebody who was born in 1895. You know, her dad was born in 1895. So, you know, it's a massive difference.
Yes.
You know, that is something, again, that it's difficult to get your head around the changes that have happened in the world, but also the changes that have happened in the world of the Queen, because, you know, we've all seen Downton Abbey and the way things were in Downton Abbey. Well, that was the way the Queen was still living. You know, she was still living with butlers and servants. And yes, she still got butlers and servants today, but there's a massive difference between what it was like in those days and what it is now. You know,
I've just seen in Kenya they had chamber pots under the bed.
Yeah.
I bet they don't have them anymore.
Well, we did.
We've had chamber pots in places that we've stayed, like in the Kalahari Desert.
Well, it's a lot easier than going outside.
Well, yeah, because there were lions outside, and there really was. And the couple, we were staying in this cabin, so it was split, so it was like a little duplex. So the other couple were there. We went out, and there really was a lion right by the bathroom, the outside bathroom.
Yeah,
and Nancy
that was fun.
Went in the bathroom and left me outside with the lion. And she thought it was hysterical. And when they roar and they start doing their grunts,
but there was
it's really loud.
But
he was there.
But he was on the other side of the fence.
But still, so we go in the bathroom. I mean, we do go back to bed. We're giggling. We think this is now funny. Then the next morning, before daylight, you hear them take their chamber pot and throw the remains outside. And they, you would have thought you would walk into the toilet, but no, they're, and we went, you went potty in your chamber pot.
But Nancy was used to lions with her Born Free experience.
Yes, there it is. She was used to it. She's used to it.
I still can't get over that fact, because I remember it would have been in the mid to late 60s. My grandmother took me to the cinema to see the film.
Wow.
And whenever I think of Nancy, I always think of my nanny who took me to the cinema to see Born Free. You know, amazing.
Yeah. You were with Pippa the leopard, but Elsa at that point had passed when you were Penny.
Yeah.
Who's Pippa? I don't know why I'm thinking
Pippa's
of Pippa.
a cheetah.
Oh, okay. Pippa.
Penny's a leopard. It was my job to track her by radio and make sure that she got fed in
That's
the
Nancy's
African
first radio job.
Yeah, so I would be following a leopard, and then part of my brain was going, this is a really stupid idea.
Yeah.
Here, kitty, have some beef,
Yeah.
Have my leg.
Yeah, no, it was really kind of odd.
But you
But it
got to
was-
think the
it
Queen was
fun.
alive through this time frame where,
Oh, yeah.
you know, even
Mhm.
conservation movements
Yeah.
had changed over the years.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, not being funny, when I first used to go to visit Sandringham, there was an entire room that was taken over in the museum that was all heads that had been shot by members of the royal family. You know, there was a great big tiger skin, there was
Yeah.
elephants and tusks, there was a rhino head, you know, there was springboks, you know, but that was normal.
That was the last of the great white hunters. You know, that part's changed. But you've got to think about what Prince William and Harry, they are really big on wildlife conservation, the environment, really done some incredible, I mean, and they put their money behind it. They put their, you know, everything.
Apart from that, I mean, the main thing is they're putting their name behind it.
Yeah, which is huge.
Because it's like Diana did with the mines, with the landmine work that she did.
She really did. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they actually put their name to something, and they put themselves out there. I mean, it's like the para games, you know, Paralympic games. You know, the royal family are very much into that. In England, we hear a lot about mental health, and the royal family are very much into that, especially the two young boys. You know, and I call them boys, but they're men. But you know, they're very much into mental health, and
that's nice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is exactly what we need people who are in the public eye to be doing. And the Queen has seen from being the elite up there where people wouldn't even dare speak in front of them, to be now where you are one of the lads. And especially with William and Harry, you know, they are more likely to get on the floor and play with the child if they visit a children's home. The Queen would never have done that when she started out. She had just waved at them with her royal wave.
Yes, the royal wave.
Yeah, exactly. But now they're actually getting down and in it, if you know what I mean.
Which is good.
Well, it is, but it's a massive change.
Yeah.
I think Diana had a lot to do with that. Lady Di, I mean, she went out to the villages and did a lot for poverty. She did a lot for clean drinking water and food, for, you know, just, you know, places that, you know, were underdeveloped. And, you know, she went out there. She held kids with AIDS. She didn't care. She held.
AIDS was a big project for Diana as well. You know, which
she did a lot.
Also helped everybody else to realize that actually, you know, you're not going to catch AIDS by talking to someone.
Right.
Exactly. And I think that was the key shifting point in the royal families when she came on board and said, you know, if I'm going to be, you know, a princess, I'm going to go out and use it I'm going to do something. I'm not going to sit back, you know. And she had incredible style. Yeah, she really did.
And you see, I think, you know, the Queen has seen all of that in her reign. And she's adapted.
That's thing.
Amazing.
She's had to adapt and change with everything that's going on in the world, and still be able. It's one thing to be a person who has to keep adapting and changing, right? And we have to do it in our businesses. We have to do it. You know, we're all adapting and changing, and it's hard. But then being at this level of having to adapt and change in a global leadership role. And as a woman dealing with countries that don't care for women in leadership. And in countries where they don't look at royalty as something important. So there's this whole, she dealt with a lot, and with grace. I think she's got a lot of grace from what I've seen.
And when you see some of the I mean, there's a lovely picture of her with that hat on in bright yellow, that bright yellow hat and coat or whatever she's wearing. She looks absolutely glorious. And you know, you still got to remember that she's in her 90s.
Yeah.
You know, and she still gets about and does things. I mean, I know that my grandmother used to say with the Queen Mother, she used to say, well, yeah, but she ain't done a day's work in her life. But, you know.
I love the Queen Mother.
Yeah. My grandmother weren't quite so happy about it. But you know, you've still got to realize that she's 95, you know, and
Yeah,
she's
it's amazing.
still getting about and still doing a lot of work. And although, yes, she probably doesn't get on her knees and scrub the floor, she's still
I'm
doing
sure.
a lot of hard work.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mm.
What a good chat, Glynn. I know we get into
fun.
all kinds of topics, don't we?
We always
we
get
behave?
sidetracked.
I know, and someone's going to send us emails. You know, somewhere we'll get like, "You're not supposed to say that.
Yeah,
I'm
probably.
never listening again," and then we'll go, "Okay, sorry," but
Yeah.
we do our thing. We do
That's
our
what
thing.
happens.
It's called integrity to what you believe.
Then free
Yeah.
speech.
Free speech is a
Remember
beautiful thing and something we must all work to protect.
that?
It's one of the most
Absolutely.
important things as we have these rulers do their thing, that we protect the right to speak and read
Mhm.
and be able to disagree. That's a very
Yeah.
important thing.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, we
communicate.
can't agree with everything that everybody says. But
No,
as long
of course
as,
not.
long as we're not nasty and attacking everybody else, then we're doing all
Mm-mm.
right. We're just
There's a way to have, just I disagree or tell me why,
Mhm.
we've got to get to a place where people are communicating. And I think that's where diplomacy is important. And I think that, going back to the Queen, sometimes I think that, royal families bring in that diplomacy that's needed instead of two rulers just yelling at each other
Yeah.
and not getting along. And I think, we need, and diplomacy's kind of gone out the window, it seems, in all these negotiations. I feel like Woodrow Wilson needs to come back to earth and kind of take everybody and say, let's, we need the League of Nations, boys.
No,
Come
I
on.
think I think there should be I wish there was some kind of test that no matter what country you're in, if you're going to run or serve for office, that you should have to take the test. So the outcome would say, oh, this is just your self-interest for power, or yes, you truly want to serve the people.
Hmm.
And if you don't pass, then you don't get to run for office.
Well, that would help. If
Yeah,
if
wouldn't
people
it?
weren't
Wouldn't
doing
it?
it for themselves all the time, that would definitely help.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
but I think a lot of the situation nowadays, especially when I see things like the Houses of Parliament, they're just shouting against each other. And
Mhm.
I've now sort of come to the conclusion that we've got two ears and one mouth, and we should use them in that order.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We should actually listen to what other people have got to say rather than try and shout over them. And the thing that really annoys me with governments is that they always tell you what the other person has done wrong rather than tell you what they could actually do to make it right. And that is what I need to hear is the solution. I don't want to see the problem. I need to hear the solution.
Or
I
when you
saw-
watch those
yeah.
things, they're sleeping.
Well, some of them, but I watched a video, it was a very short video the other day of the Israeli parliament, and they were debating women's rights, and they got up and the men they were beating the crap out of each other, and it was filmed. So that was their parliament at work, and they're
Wow.
smashing each other, fisting each other, boom, boom. I was like, this is like an old Western.
I've seen that in
Yeah,
other
it's
parliament. I've
crazy.
seen that in like
That
other
was the-
countries.
It was the
I've seen that
Israeli
happen.
parliament.
Yeah,
And,
that's happened.
Wow.
Was
Yeah.
that recent or like
Yeah,
something from
just
a while?
about a week ago, 2 weeks
Good
ago.
Lord.
It's about
That doesn't sound very good, does it?
no, it doesn't. I was shocked, because I always thought that Israel was a little bit more progressive, yeah.
One would have
Especially
hoped so.
with women's rights. I was like, wow, look at that. It was quite amazing. It was like the old West bar brawl.
But it's happened. I mean, we've been in meetings, just even a regular, like your buy local Norfolk
Oh,
kind of
gosh,
organization.
yeah. Remember
And
that?
They were, well, it was, I don't want to say who, what, and where,
No,
but apparently they were passing the brandy bottle around.
yes.
Yeah.
And then some of the leaders, I put in
Yes.
quotation marks, got into it and had a fist fight.
Yeah.
And I was there and I had to grab the checkbook for
Say-
the organization. And then the secretary started screeching at me, "That's all you guys want is the checkbook." Whatever. And so the women started fighting And I think we were supposed to be putting Christmas decorations together for the
Mhm.
local community. And this
Wow.
is what happened. And we're just looking at this going, wow.
I'm like, this
All
is
right,
this is
maybe the
cool.
branding
Look at
wasn't a
this.
good idea at a local meeting. Or I don't know, but we just look, I mean, it was pretty, and people
Mhm.
that I liked were doing this. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know. Like, wow, okay. So
Yeah.
it happens. And
Mhm.
it's, so I don't know. I think we get a little too tense on things, we really do in
Mm.
life.
Some of us.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, are you running for self-interest or to help the community?
Yeah.
That's the
the
big
question.
difference. And you can
Maybe they
tell-
should all meditate before they do anything. They need to
That'd
all
be
sit and
interesting.
go through like 10 minutes of meditation, guided
Yeah.
meditation that will say, do good, do
Yeah.
good.
I think that
All
might
right.
be an idea.
Glenn, thank you so much. It's always so much fun with you. Everyone,
Mhm.
again, Glenn's website is Norfolk-Tours.co.uk. His article's up on blendradio-and-tv.com. You'll see him under our experts, and from there you can link through a gazillion of his articles and
Mhm.
interviews. So it's great to chat again. And so it'll be on for next, we've got another segment we've got to get recorded for February now. This is your
We have,
January
yeah.
segment. So every
will
fourth
be there.
Saturday is Glynn.
Lovely job. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
It's good to
Thank you,
see
everyone,
you.
for joining us. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Take care, everyone.
Bye.